YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. We're less than a week away to the NFL trade deadline on November 2nd. Few trades going down, minor ones. I expect some big ones to go down leading up to that trade deadline. A lot of rumors, a lot of things heating up here. And, outside of Deshaun Watson. We've talked enough about Deshaun Watson, some recent videos on there. We have a couple recent trade deadline videos. Check those out. I'll put a link down in the comments for all of those. We're not talking about Deshaun Watson in this video, though. I've kind of had enough. Any updates on that, we'll have you covered on Twitter, though, like always. In this video, I'm going to go through 10 trades. These trades, I think we would love to see happen. I would love to see them happen. They're also realistic, not just pulling these out of nowhere. Maybe there's one at the end that a little less realistic than the rest, but I do think it's possible. So I'm excited to break these down. We'll have my final predictions, things like that. Last-second trade candidates plus landing spots. We got you covered. Again, any of those recent trade deadline videos or other weekly content you'll find down pinned in the comments. Follow our Twitter for constant updates. Like, subscribe, turn notifications down. Full NFL coverage here at the Goat House, so join us. Here's our Twitter. Yeah, constant updates. Mark Ingram got traded. We talked about that. Mark Ingram traded back to the Saints. He was with the Saints. And I was making this video. Believe it or not, I was making this video, and I'm trying to come up with 10 trades that I would really like that also make sense. I had the Saints pegged for a running back, partly because they were in on Marlon Mack. And I thought, Mark Ingram back, the Texans are trying to trade Mark Ingram back to the Saints. Might be a possibility, so I kind of, in my notes, had Saints and then Marlon Mack and Mark Ingram. I didn't get to that point where I was going to pick which one to include in this video, but then all of a sudden Mark Ingram traded the Saints, so that was interesting. I probably would have leaned towards Marlon Mack if I had to predict, just because he was actually a little cheaper in terms of the cap hit, so that was pretty wild, so I had to replace that trade in here. But let's break these down. Let's start with the XAVIEN Howard. Some rumors surrounding him. And I will say this right off the bat. If I had to predict, I don't think the Dolphins trade him, but a lot of talk about him. Maybe he's not fully happy still. They're trying to gain picks perhaps to assist in Deshaun Watson. We said we weren't going to talk about Deshaun Watson, though, but maybe that's the case. The Vikings cleared a little bit of space by trading Stephen Weatherly. If you look closely, that trade, the pick they got back is conditional, so that's interesting, which makes it look like they needed a favor. They needed to clear a little bit of space, so they could be up to something. Patrick Peterson's out for at least 3 games, and he's been really their only corner playing solid, Breeland here and there. And they've been on the hunt for a legit corner for a bit. Zimmer is kind of known as the cornerback guy, and they've been trying to draft guys. They draft them pretty early. It hasn't really worked out recently, so go get that proven, polished guy here. I think Howard's value still could be a first-round pick. So in this scenario, you can just slap a 2022 first-round pick. There's a lot of people out there that don't think he's worth the first anymore, so I came up with another scenario that's pretty close to the equal value to that first. That could make sense as well if the Vikings or another team does not want to trade that first. 2 seconds this year and next year, and also a next year fourth as well, kind of get close to equal to that first-round pick. Dolphins get a bunch of picks to kind of assist if they want to make any other moves. And the Vikings finally get that proven corner here, a playmaking corner that they possibly could be looking for. Maybe they'll be looking for a little bit of cheaper one because they'll barely be able to do this. Might have to make another move. And this would be the week of the deadline they would have to do it by here. So, very interested to see if Howard is on the move. I talked about him potentially the Titans in a recent video, but this is one. I'm a Vikings fan, so I think I would like it. I'm never really a big fan of giving up a bunch of picks though, so it really depends on what the picks would be. But go get that veteran corner there that they're looking for. Next one, Zach Cunningham. I talked about him in a recent video because the Texans are going to be sellers. So I'm thinking, would they trade Zach Cunningham? It hasn't really fit the new defense. And now today it's coming out, I believe it was per Jeremy Fowler, that Cunningham is a potential trade candidate. He was hearing that he could be dealt. He's available perhaps for trade. The Texans are willing to move on from him perhaps. So that's interesting. Zach Cunningham's a pretty damn good linebacker. Texans change defenses. For some reason, they don't think he fits on the inside. They're playing him kind of out of position. He hasn't been playing that well, so he could be dealt. Trying to think of teams. I think that teams like the Cowboys or the football team could use another inside linebacker, but I'm starting to think those teams might be a little worried here because it's not working out in the Texans' 4-3 defense. He worked out perfectly in their old 3-4 defense, so his other 4-3 teams maybe view him as a little bit of a risk. At the same time, He's got some future cap hits, some sizable future cap hits, cheap right now. So I think it's too much of a risk maybe for those teams, even though I would kind of like it. I think he would fit a team like Washington football team, teams like that. But I'm looking for more of a 3-4 team that we know he can fit on the inside, that could use help on the inside, and also has that cap space for the future. There really is only one team that makes sense and checks all of those boxes, and that doesn't mean I don't think he can work in a 4-3 team or other teams, but that's the Chargers here. And there's other pieces, other players I really like for the Chargers. I talked about Akeem Hicks in a past video. They were actually interested in him. I love Brandon Cooks for them. The last video we did, a trade for every team. I like Brandon Cooks a lot for the Chargers, and that's a possibility. So change it up a little bit. Didn't want to be boring, go the Cooks again. Zach Cunningham, more of a legit trade candidate. Who makes sense the most for him? The Chargers to me. I know they're going to get Kenneth Murray back, but they still could use Cunningham as well. They're dead last stopping a run. Cunningham can help big time there. Rams are another team that could use an inside linebacker. They actually traded away Kenny Young. Cunningham would fit, would make them a lot better. Can they afford him, and do they want to create that? They can afford him right now, but do they want to create that wiggle room, and can they afford him in the future? That's the big question. So, and they're not a big pay linebackers type of guys there. Maybe they change, new defense coordinator. Defense is struggling a little bit, maybe because of that. It was odd they moved on from Kenny Young, maybe because they didn't want to pay him in the offseason perhaps, but they basically gave him away. So that was interesting. So trying to figure out the value for Cunningham is very tricky. I think talent-wise, what he can be in a 3-4, I'd say maybe a second-round pick. But then you do factor in the Texans are playing him out of position. They don't like to fit in their defense, and now they're saying, he's kind of available here. So maybe the value drops a little bit because of that. Maybe because 4-3 teams won't be involved. Maybe because the teams that can't afford him in the future won't be involved. And then maybe because it's a little bit of a risk because he has pretty hefty cap hits in the future. So all of that combined, it seems like the Texans lose a little bit of value on him, lose a little bit of leverage. So it is a little tricky to figure out. Talent value in a 3-4. The Chargers defense, I think he'll be good. I would say a second, but because of those different parts there that are playing a part, I think it drops down a little bit. Maybe a third. Maybe a third's a little too rich because of that, So I threw in a fourth and a fifth a year apart here, 2022 fourth, 2023 fifth. If traded, I'm usually pretty good at figuring out the value. This one, I'm very curious to see what it'll be because it's pretty damn tricky. I would like this trade a lot more if this was the scenario or the compensation. I would like it a lot more if the Chargers. I would feel like the Texans just gave up on him too easy. They changed schemes, or they think the scheme is better than the player, and in this case, I don't think so. So I would kind of knock the Texans for something like this, but I think it is pretty realistic. They do clear the future space. They are looking for draft picks. They're sure they'll get some for Watson, but they are missing some of those mid to late round picks for this year. So they do get that help there, but I think they should get a little more value. I'm just trying to figure out what would actually happen. It's a tricky one with Zach Cunningham. We're sticking on the Texans here. Lonnie Johnson Jr., who he's got his highs and lows. Like he's got his good moments, some good upside there. I liked him at cornerback out of Kentucky. Actually, I liked him a lot there. And Texans at some point moved him to safety. Again, he's been hot and cold there. And I've heard that we know they're sellers. We don't need to hear them know they're sellers. And they traded Mark Ingram a little bit ago. I heard that, the specific players that are available for them. We talked about Zach Cunningham, and I also heard that they will be willing to take calls on their safeties, actually. I don't know which safeties, how many. It sounded like multiple. That doesn't mean they're going to trade multiple. I don't think they want to trade multiple. I think one middle portion of the season so far, the middle portion of it, kind of felt like they were playing Lonnie Johnson less. They ended up playing him the most snaps out of any safety last week, so who knows, but maybe they were trying to, maybe we're going to trade this guy, and maybe they don't really know the fit. Is he better at corner safety? And the Rams cleared a little bit of space. I'm thinking since the Rams cleared space by trading Kenny Young, it felt like they did that to clear space. That's why it really is what it felt like, and they may be making a move. I'm thinking, they already with Kenny Young had to get better at inside linebacker, so they got to be going after inside linebacker, right? But they've never really been a big. Because a lot of these guys that are available, we talked about one, Cunningham, we'll talk about more. I don't know if they want to pay their price, the future cap hits. I don't know if they value that position. Maybe they are now with a little bit different defense. But Lonnie Johnson, I love the fit there. I think he makes a lot of sense. Last year, they actually played quite a bit of safeties. I mean, there was one point in the year where we saw, because they had John Johnson, who was a stud. They played him. They played Taylor Rapp. They played Jordan Fuller. Terrell Burgess is kind of a slot/safety guy. They played all those guys within a game. I know Rapp ended up getting hurt. Burgess ended up getting hurt. And that the defense was still balling, but they're just kind of going strict two safeties. They're missing a cornerback in Darius Williams, so they could use some help at the cornerback position as well. I'm putting it all together. Lonnie Johnson makes sense for kind of both those. You can use him at outside corner. You can use him at safety. You can use him covering whatever it is from the slot/box position. I think he helps you in so many different ways. I think they really value defensive backs. I think they're looking for somebody else. I haven't heard anything about the Rams connected to Lonnie Johnson, or even specifically Lonnie Johnson's name being thrown out there as a trade candidate. It just made sense to me. Figuring the compensation out for this one was really tough, because I want to keep it as realistic as possible. So I got to look at what teams have in terms of their draft capital. We got to check out what they have. And I was thinking maybe a 4th round pick goes to the Texans. The Rams don't have that. Then I was thinking, can they swap somehow? Can they swap picks? The Texans are missing picks to kind of give the ones I wanted, back to the Rams. So kind of all over the place here. It's very tricky with this one to figure out correct value with the missing picks that these teams had. So I came up with 2 5th-round picks, 2022, 2023. Overall, Lonnie Johnson struggled a bit. Again, he's had those highs. Maybe people would think he has more value. That is 2 picks, though. At one point I was like, yeah, man, do the Rams give up a 3rd, and then they get a pick back? Again, the Texans are missing some of those picks that I would like for them to give back. They could give it back in a future year. I don't think the Rams would do that involving a 3rd. So that's the problem. I love the fit. I feel like the Texans would be willing to move on from him, but the missing picks is kind of the problem for the compensation. But I made it work like this. I think this makes sense to me with the 2 5th-round picks. I would really like to fit with the Rams there. We'll see. The Rams could. I think they're up to something. I'd be surprised the Rams didn't make a move. It could be an inside linebacker. It could be a safety corner. It could be that slot corner or outside corner. It could be a pass rusher. It could be a defensive lineman. I don't think it's going to be anything on offense. It could be anything on defense there, because the defense has been a little underwhelming this year. Texans are big-time sellers. We know that. Myles Jack's name's been thrown out there. Maybe he's not thrilled with Urban Meyer, the new staff. Maybe the staff's not thrilled with him. Hasn't been playing last couple weeks. It is due to an injury, though. They moved on from Schobert. They're willing to move on from guys. So, maybe this week against the Seahawks, whether he plays or not and how they perform with or without him, maybe that'll say a lot here, but he's still very valuable. Washington, they missed Bostic. Linebacker unit in general has been playing that well. And, I thought Myles Jack would be a good fit. Pair him with the group they have with Jamin Davis and Cole Holcomb. They really don't have anybody else after that, because, again, Bostic's hurt, and they like playing 3 linebackers a bit. And that part of their defense has been struggling, and Bostic's also going to be a free agent. Get a guy like Myles Jack in there who's on somewhat of a lengthy contract still, and it's pricey in terms of cap hits, but it's nothing over the top. It's definitely, you got to have some cap space, but it's definitely worth it. I think it's correct value there, and Washington has a good amount of cap space in the future. Now, the reason they could hold out on this is because, maybe they want to save that cap for maybe trading for a quarterback, because they do need a quarterback of the future. I know not now, but maybe perhaps in the offseason they want things to kind of carry over there. Rollover, I should say. But I like the fit here. Maybe the Jags are willing to move on from him, so send him to Washington. Jaguars get a 2nd and a 4th, a year apart here. Definitely don't think he'd be going for a 1st. Just a 2nd alone didn't feel right. Still a young player, very talented. A lot of teams looking for linebackers. I would like Myles Jack for the Rams as well, because I think he fits any scheme. But do the Rams want to pay that linebacker for that many years? He's got a couple more years left on his contract. Cowboys, do they have the cap space for that? No. You look at these teams that we talked about. Chargers maybe need a linebacker. So I thought Washington made some sense here. So we'll see if I haven't really heard that the Jags are open to trading him. It's just kind of a lot of people talking about it. A lot of people talking about it. It's a possibility, I suppose. I liked Washington as a fit there. I really liked it. Next, Melvin Ingram getting thrown out there that the teams have called. Teams have called the Steelers on Melvin Ingram. Not the other way around. Steelers really aren't looking to trade him, but they do like Alex Highsmith. They do feel a little more comfortable about him right now. But then they don't really have the depth. If it's just kind of T.J. Watt and Highsmith. They tried to sign Whitney Merciless. That might be why. Get him, and then we'll trade Ingram. And they missed out on that. Merciless went to the Packers, of course. So, but the Chiefs actually had interest in Ingram during the offseason. They couldn't really come to terms. Maybe he liked the Steelers' offer better. But the Chiefs looking for a pass rusher right now, and they could, we know they have some sort of interest in Ingram, so they could look to acquire him here. And Melvin Ingram's a guy that's not really going to get a ton of pass rush productive, but he's a creator. He creates for his teammates here, and he can get production himself. But I think that's what the Chiefs need, because they still believe in a guy like Frank Clark. They believe in Chris Jones. They have Jaron Reed, so kind of get that guy that can get production himself, but kind of open things up as well. So I had the Steelers getting a 4th-round pick and the Chiefs getting a 6th back. This was a little tricky as well because I thought a 5th made sense, but the Chiefs don't have that 5th, so you kind of had to figure out a way around it. So a little bit of a swap of picks. Steelers get a 4th, and they'd be good with that. They don't really want to move on from him at this moment unless they can get somebody back, but we'll see. Teams are calling apparently, and teams are interested. So I thought that made sense here with the Chiefs, who are. The Chiefs got a deal for a pass rusher of some sort. There's a number of names we talked about. Charles Omenihu is a possibility. Maybe a couple of Bills pass rushers available. Derek Barnett maybe. They got to land somebody. They got to be able to do it here. So sticking with the Steelers, and this isn't related actually. This is an interesting one that I like. It's such a small one right now, but I like it a lot. LJ Collier. And it's not related because remember I said, Ingram, they want to replace him, and maybe people are out there thinking, here I go, I'm replacing him. I don't think so, actually. Melvin Ingram is playing outside linebacker in his year is 3-4. LJ Collier I like as a 3-4 defensive end here. And he hasn't worked out. 1st-round pick that hasn't worked out for the Seattle Seahawks. We all knew it was kind of a reach. But I liked LJ Collier. Not in the 1st round, but I liked him, and I graded him as a 3-4 defensive end. He goes to Seattle, plays more of a 4-3 end role. And it doesn't work out because he's not a fit. And he's been underwhelming in general, but he's just not a fit. So, and it's been reported that the Seahawks are looking to trade him, actually, and they are getting some calls. So they're trying to get some draft picks back here. And so it's pretty realistic they can move on from him. And I grade him as a 3-4 defensive end. I still like his upside there. Steelers made sense. They're very good at developing these types of players, making them good. They also have a big-time player in Stephon Tuitt that plays 3-4 defensive end that hasn't played yet this year, and it seems like that injury is carrying on a little bit. They don't really have the best depth they got defensive linemen that can rotate in, but that specific style of player they don't really have. So LJ Collier definitely made sense to me. I guess the problem here is Steelers are pretty thin on day 3 draft picks, very thin actually. But they can't offer the 7th. Will it take a little more than that because he was just drafted in the 1st round a few years ago? So maybe you can say he has upside. But the Seahawks trying to move on from him. He has been very underwhelming. So I don't know if it's more than that. It's probably not a lot more. So there's quite a few teams that maybe would take a shot at him. I just thought the Steelers made the most sense. Kind of like if he were to be traded, for best case for him, I would like him on the Steelers. And it makes sense for the reasons I explained as well. So that would be interesting there. But is a guy to definitely look out for. He could be traded. Next up, Kyle Fuller. We expect Kyle Fuller to be traded. His name's been brought up a ton. There's teams that need corners badly. There's not too many available. I look at teams like the Packers. We talked about the Vikings maybe looking for a corner. The Bills, the Titans, the Rams. I could keep naming teams here. There's multiple teams that could use a cornerback there. Packers made sense here. The Packers feels like they're not afraid to make some moves this year. I like that. They're not afraid to make some moves. They're trying to win. They're feeling like they're Super Bowl or bust this year, which they should feel like every year, as long as you have Aaron Rodgers here. And Jair Alexander goes down. He's hurt. They need some corner help. I think they'll realize more they need corner help after the Thursday night game against Kyler Murray. We'll see that passing attack. Alexander could be out longer than we expected. It's pretty much just Stokes out there. I'm sure they have Kevin King, but they definitely could use another guy. And King has been hurt here too, but Fuller makes sense. I think he makes sense for them. It seems like they've been running some zone coverage, some cover 2 in there as well. I like him in that scheme. They used to play with the Bears. They used to play against him twice a year. So I think it makes sense here. They have enough space. It sounded like they were in on Stephon Gilmore, so they're kind of looking for that veteran corner that they're okay with the expiring deal because, again, they're going to get Alexander back. They're going to roll with Stokes. That's going to be the duo for a long time, so that makes sense. Broncos playing him less. Darby comes back. They're barely playing Kyle Fuller. They're going to move on from him. Fourth-round pick. I think his value is dropping probably by the minute because they're not playing him. I think at one point it was probably a third. We're dropping to a fourth. You may say, yeah, they're not playing at all, so it should continue to drop. I could see, I guess depending on where he goes, the Broncos paying a cut of his salary to help the team out. I don't know if the Packers really need the help. They got a decent amount of cap. They could pay a little bit, so that puts it around a fourth-round pick, but it could be to Buffalo. Again, it could be to Minnesota, Tennessee, teams like that, that were the Broncos. The Broncos got a ton of cap space, so they can get a better pick by paying a little bit of that. They may want that, obviously. So Kyle Fuller's the one where I think he's going to be traded. I'm pretty damn sure he's going to be traded. We'll see. We'll see here. Next up, Evan Engram talked about earlier today. We talked about on Twitter that multiple teams called and showed interest in Evan Engram, the tight end from the Giants. Feels like every single year. We don't really necessarily know that the Giants want to trade Evan Engram. Teams are calling. Again, it seems like every year. But expiring deal, haven't been playing him too much. They got other tight ends. They got other weapons. Maybe now's the time. Get something out of him before he leaves in free agency, or maybe you sign him again. If the Giants keep him, I'm just convinced they love him, and they just insist on, because we know he has upside, but he hasn't even been near reaching that. But I would be convinced that they would be wanting him back. But the Bills, Dawson Knox was having a monster year, and then he got hurt, broke a bone in his hand. Should be back pretty soon, but that's one of those injuries that I think could keep injuring itself, or he could be out longer than expected. Maybe a surgery pops up. And for the Bills, it's almost a playing it safe type deal here, because if they don't have Dawson Knox, we get past the trade deadline and Dawson Knox is back and then goes back out, they're in trouble at that position, because we got Tommy Sweeney, who's mainly I know he scored a touchdown 2 weeks ago, but he had against the Titans, but he's more of a blocking tight end. So I that's a tricky part, because if Dawson Knox is in there, Engram's going to feel a little bit like a waste. They're going to find ways to use him. They can put him in the slot. They can put him outside if they want. They're going to find ways to use him, even though they have a long list of receivers too. But he may feel a little bit like there's a scenario where he may feel a little bit like a waste, and that's the tough part. Tennessee came to mind as well. I don't know if they'd be looking for his style, but they could definitely benefit from that. If the Saints had cap space, I would love the Saints, but they don't have cap space, and they trade for Mark Ingram, so they might be at zero. They may be able to make some moves, but Bills, kind of play it safe, because you're trying to win a Super Bowl here. You know that you're contending, so go get a guy like this. Little tricky to figure out the compensation here, because a fifth round makes more sense to me. But I don't think the Giants would get rid of him for a fifth-round pick. I really don't. So the fourth, maybe a late pick goes back to the Bills. The Giants, it's gonna. I feel like it's got to be pretty appealing for them to actually do it. Bills, I think it'll be worth it. Again, there's a scenario where it's maybe not going to look great. It's like, do we need to do that? But it's better safe than sorry. That's kind of what it feels like. We usually don't say that when acquiring a player, but that's kind of what it feels like for the whole Dawson Knox situation with the Bills, and just get another guy in there. Next trade, we got Andre Dillard of the Eagles going to the Ravens. So the Ravens are very beat up at the tackle position. There's some rumors that Dillard could be dealt. That was before during the offseason or preseason, around there. It's kind of sparking back up a little bit. Now, I've seen other people talk about this, and I've seen other people kind of give what their scenario would look like, and they're nowhere near a third-round pick. They are way lower in terms of the compensation, but I'll tell you, I've seen 6th-round pick. I'll tell you right now, the Eagles are not trading Dillard away for a 6th-round pick. I don't see a 5th-round pick either. I'm thinking 3rd or 4th, and he's still got upside. They still like him. He's got some experience in there. The Ravens desperately need a tackle. Linemen like this are never available. They're never available at the deadline. Never. There's always teams looking for offensive linemen. They're never available. So I think that increases his value. It's kind of like you gotta make it appealing, or we're not going to do it type situation for the Eagles. So a lot has to happen, and the Ravens would like him. I think he would fit there. They definitely need tackles right now. Lamar Jackson's been under all kinds of pressure with the offensive line, and they just can't have any of that. So they're going to have to go out and do something here. So this made sense to me. There's even a shot the Eagles wouldn't even do it for a third-round pick. There's actually even that shot. I'm not saying yes that they wouldn't do it for a third. But I would be surprised if it was that late pick, and if it was, I think it'd be a mega steal for like the Ravens or whoever was trading for him. And we got one more. This one's a little less realistic than the other ones, mainly because we haven't heard anything on Marcus Mariota. The Panthers all of a sudden got back in on the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. And I'm mentioning Deshaun Watson again, even though I said it wasn't, but they did, and then they were out. They actually did call the Texans earlier this week, and then they decided they were out. And after the disaster of last week against the Giants, where Sam Darnold played pretty poorly, so they could be looking for a quarterback still. They definitely still could be in the market. Marcus Mariota is probably the best backup out there. He definitely could play, and he's an expiring deal. The Raiders may be able to maybe willing to deal him. We heard about that in the past as well, the offseason, last trade deadline. So I think Mariota easily be the Panthers' best quarterback. I think he would fit there, and I think they believe they can make the playoffs here. So maybe go get a guy like that. At one point was thinking a 4th-round pick. Maybe that's a little too much. One with a 5th and a 7th. But would the Raiders do that, for Mariota? Because they like Mariota. He's on an expiring deal, though, so get something here. Maybe they feel like they get a better compensatory pick in the future there if they lose him in free agency. And early in the year before he got hurt, they kind of had some design plays for him. Is that still the case now that he's back? So interesting stuff here. I'm not expecting this one to happen. It just makes sense. I think it'll be an upgrade in my opinion. Maybe the Panthers don't think that, but adding Marcus Mariota and they were all of a sudden back in the quarterback discussions there because Sam Darnold's been very disappointing. So who knows? Mariota's come up in the past in terms of trade talk, so maybe he'll come up again here. And trade deadline's next Tuesday. It's the rumors are starting to pick up, and teams usually wait till the week of the deadline a lot because they want to save space because another week, one less paycheck, they pay them less money, the player they get. So it makes sense why teams, they want the player now to help them, but we got a week so we can afford him or save some space after that. So it makes sense that maybe more names will be popping up or random trades will happen that we weren't expecting, closer to trade deadline because of that. So we have you guys covered for this. We got a couple other videos that recently went up covering the trade deadline. A lot of interesting stuff. I'll pin the links to those types of videos in the comments of this video. And there's definitely more to come. Maybe my last second predictions, or we'll revisit the candidates and all their landing spots, not just one landing spot. What's the other possibilities? So really enjoy talking about this stuff. We also have weekly picks, power rankings, score predictions, you name it. We got it. Cover the NFL draft as well. So join us for all that. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on. Make sure you follow that Twitter. Instant reaction to all these trades, live updates on there as well. So check it out. It's going to do it for this one, though. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.